All right, welcome everyone. Please stand and join us with a moment of silence, followed by the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. All right, everybody, my name is Peter, and I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is May 17th, 2012, and for that I'm grateful. Welcome to the 7 p.m. Thursday night meeting of the Treasure Map group of Alcoholics Anonymous. This is an open meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. Before we start our evening, please remember to shut off or silence your cell phones. Thank you. We send a special welcome to any visitors from out of town. Please stand and introduce yourselves. Okay. Also, anyone who may be visiting the Treasure Map group for the first time, please stand and be recognized. All right, welcome. All right. Finally, if there's anyone who is here for their first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, please stand and be recognized. We are very happy that you came tonight, and you're welcome here. All right. The Treasure Map group of Alcoholics Anonymous believes in working the 12 steps as outlined in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous with a sponsor. There are many home group members here tonight that are willing to be sponsors. If you are new or if you don't have a sponsor, you can stop at the back table during the break and see Randy for names and phone numbers of home group members willing to sponsor others. Okay. And the Treasure Map group of Alcoholics Anonymous is committed to bringing a message of hope to those who suffer from alcoholism. We believe this message is contained within the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous and our personal experiences. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. All right, so tonight is a book study. Our meeting will focus on step 5. So we'll begin that shortly. If you need a big book, please raise your hand and we'll bring one to you. So it's a book study, so don't feel free to raise it high there if you need one. So, all right, we have several announcements for tonight. Let's see here. Here we are. Online financial support for the Treasure Map meeting is now available. Reoccurring monthly support is deeply appreciated and helps the group fund our meetings, events, speaker costs, coffee, and birthday celebrations. For more details, see Randy at the back or go to treasuremapmeeting.com. Also, if you give online, please grab a tag and place it in the basket as it is passed. And feel free to grab these when you first come in for that. Also, please feel free to take our Treasure Map 12-step cards. They're a great way to pass on your information about the Treasure Map meeting. You got a place for your phone number and name on the back here, and it's got the website with the most up-to-date meeting schedule, etc. Let's see here. Study questions are available up at treasuremapmeeting.com. So also for tonight. December 7th through the 9th, Concepts in the West at Lake Ponset Camp in Arlington, South Dakota. That's this weekend. All right. A great panel of AA members will be discussing concepts 10, 11, and 12 and their connections to the 12 steps and 12 traditions. For details and registration forms, you can go to area63aa.org. Also, the last Thursday in December, we'll be holding a group conscience. So if you're looking to get involved in Alcoholics Anonymous or service commitments, also if you're new, it's a great way to get connected with other people in the program and be part of the fellowship. Something we'd recommend for that. So last Thursday of December. February 9th to the 10th, Area 63 Winter Assembly in Pierce, South Dakota. For more details, see Amy H., the Treasure Map Meetings General Service representative. And then July 19th to the 21st, North Dakota Young People's Alcoholics Anonymous Conference. Details to follow. We are considering a bus trip to and from this event if we have enough desire to do so. So you can see Randy at the back table if that's something that interests you. All right, and then December 13th, we're doing a book study on step 6 and 7. We'll be having Joe G. from Brookings, South Dakota, coming to speak. On the 20th of December, we've got step 6 and 7 with Megan F. from Bismarck, North Dakota. And then the 27th of December, we're having a big book study on step 8 and 9. All right, District 5 Corrections and Treatments Committee looking for folks to run meetings at the Minnehaha County Jail, Work Release Center, State Penitentiary. Also, a background check is required. A minimum of 3 months of continuous sobriety is also required. You can contact Matt M. and the email is matt@mchartford.com. All right. Okay, and now if you'll please welcome Chris to read how it works from our textbook, Alcoholics Anonymous. Well, thank you, Chris.
Hi, everybody. Chris, alcoholic. Sobriety date, January 26th of 2018. Coming up on 1 year. This is how it works. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. Usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. There are such unfortunates. They are not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. Their chances are less than average. There are those too who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. Our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now. If you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps. At some of these we balked. We thought we could find an easier, softer way, but we could not. With all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was nil until we let go absolutely. Remember that we deal with alcohol, cunning, baffling, powerful. Without help, it is too much for us. But there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. Half measures availed us nothing. We stood at the turning point. We asked his protection and care with complete abandon. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for the knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry the message to the alcoholic and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Many of us exclaimed, "What an order!" I can't go through with it. Do not be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We are not saints. The point is that we are willing to grow along spiritual lines. The principles we have set down are guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Our description of the alcoholic, the chapter to the agnostic, and our personal adventures before and after make clear 3 pertinent ideas. A, that we were alcoholic and cannot manage our own lives. B, that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. And C, that God could and would if he were sought.
All right. And now please welcome Matt to read our 12 traditions as we pass the baskets. Thank you in advance for your generosity and support. Tradition 7 states that every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions.
Thank you. Matt, alcoholic. 1, our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends upon AA unity. 2, for our group purpose, there is but one ultimate authority, a loving God as he may express himself in our group conscience. Our leaders are but trusted servants, they do not govern. 3, the only requirement for AA membership is the desire to stop drinking. 4, each group should be autonomous except in matters affecting other groups or AA as a whole. 5, each group has but one primary purpose, to carry its message to the alcoholic who still suffers. 6, an AA group ought never endorse, finance, or lend the AA name to any related facility or outside enterprise, lest problems of money, property, and prestige divert us from our primary purpose. 7, every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. 8, Alcoholics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional, but our service centers may employ special workers. 9, AA as such ought never be organized, but we may create service boards or committees directly responsible to those they serve. 10, Alcoholics Anonymous has no opinion on outside issues, hence the AA name ought never be drawn into public controversy. 11, our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, and films. 12, anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities.
All right, we talk a lot about home group membership at the Treasure Map Group because we believe it is vital to our recovery. What does it mean to be a home group member? Here's a brief excerpt from the AA General Service Conference approved pamphlet on the AA group. Traditionally, most AA members throughout the years have found it important to belong to one group that they call their home group. This is the group where they accept service responsibilities and try to sustain friendships. And although all AA members are usually welcome at all groups and feel at home at any of these meetings, the concept of the home group has still remained the strongest bond between the AA member and the fellowship. With membership comes the right to vote on issues that might affect the group or might also affect AA as a whole, a process that forms the very cornerstone of AA service structure. As with all group conscience matters, each AA member has one vote, and this ideally is voiced through the home group. Over the years, the very essence of AA strength has remained with our home group, which for many members becomes our extended family. Once isolated by our drinking, we find in the home group a solid continuing support system, friends, and very often a sponsor. We also learn firsthand through the group's workings how to place principles before personalities in the interest of carrying the AA message. Talking about her own group, a member says, part of my commitment is to show up at my home group meetings, greet newcomers at the door, and be available to them. Not only for them, but for me. My fellow group members are the people who know me, listen to me, and steer me straight when I'm off in left field. They give me their experience, strength, and AA love, enabling me to pass it on to the alcoholic who still suffers. If you are interested in making the Treasure Map meeting your home group, please see Randy at the back table during the break or after the meeting. Now, because we have two different speakers tonight, so our first speaker will be Mark J. from Sioux Falls, and he's going to go over our book study for Into Action over Step 5, and then we're going to have Tiny from Sioux Falls give his experience, strength, and hope on step 5 after that. So we're going to take a 10-minute break before we start our 2 speakers. So we will reconvene here at, let's see here, 7:26, so 10 minutes. All right, see you guys then.
Here's how it started. These 2 American exports. No, people see that. No, I do. Slam that one time without I'd like to I want to for farmer take a lot of time.
All right, if everyone would please take their seats and we'll get started here. Okay, and now it is my pleasure to introduce our first speaker here, Mark J. from Sioux Falls. So please join me in welcoming Mark.
Everybody, I'm Mark. I'm an alcoholic. Yeah, so fifth step we're talking about, I guess, just personal experience with the fifth step, just to kind of get into that a little bit. I had a very positive experience doing the fifth step. Pretty nervous going into it, I guess. I was talking to some guys before the meeting, and I was kind of familiar with the process of it, I guess. I grew up Catholic, and we have this thing called confession. It's kind of similar in a lot of ways to the fifth step, and so I guess I was kind of familiar with the concept of it, if you will. If you don't have a sponsor, I encourage you to get one. I remember when I was going through this stuff, a lot of conversations with my sponsor, going over my four-step inventory and kind of discussing what we were trying to achieve with the fifth step and all that stuff. So I'm just going to read, go through what the book says about step 5 and then kind of talk about my personal experience with it as I'm going through here. So anybody that has a book wants to follow along, it's chapter 6, page 72, into action. It says, having made our personal inventory, what shall we do about it? We have been trying to get a new attitude, a new relationship with our Creator, and to discover the obstacles in our path, right? So they're talking about our four-step inventory that we just got done writing. We have admitted certain defects. We have ascertained in a rough way what the trouble is. We have put our finger on the weak items in our personal inventory. Now these are about to be cast out, right? So we've identified this stuff in the fourth step, and now we're gonna get rid of it in step 5. This requires action on our part, which, when completed, will mean that we have admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our defects. This brings us to the fifth step in the program of recovery mentioned in the preceding chapter. This is perhaps difficult, especially discussing our defects with another person, right? Absolutely, like that's everybody's experience. I don't think anybody's excited about revealing their fourth step to somebody else, right? Like it's a lot of super personal stuff. It's, pretty embarrassing stuff we're not proud of. A lot of stuff that, that I was really ashamed of, that I didn't want people knowing about, people judging me and, all that. So, and it goes on here, it says, this is perhaps difficult, especially discussing this with another person. We think we have done well enough in admitting these things to ourselves, right? So that was something I struggled with too, like I wrote this down and got it down on paper, like God knows it. Why do I need to go talk to somebody else about it? And then it says there is doubt about that. In actual practice, we usually find a solitary self-appraisal insufficient. Many of us thought it necessary to go further. So they're telling us that just writing it down, just doing step 4, taking the inventory is not enough, right? We will be more reconciled to discussing ourselves with another human person when we see good reasons why we should do so. And it says the best reason first, if we skip this vital step, we may not overcome drinking. Well, that's a pretty good reason, right? So like the reason that we're here is to overcome drinking, right? We're alcoholics. We're having issues and there's 12 steps. We got to do them all. My personal experience about the time that I was doing my 4th and 5th step, I had been sober a little while. Took a lot longer to do my 4th step than I probably should have. But you excuse me, you're coming to meetings, been sober a few months, got a job, you're working, things are going pretty good. And it's pretty easy to kind of let your foot off the gas. Or at least it was for me going through these steps, and you kind of, I don't know, they almost become kind of like secondary. Like you're going to meetings, you're volunteering, you're doing whatever. And it's easy to kind of forget that, we need to keep moving forward through this book and get through these steps. And it says, time after time, newcomers have tried to keep to themselves certain facts about their lives. Trying to avoid this humbling experience, they have turned to easier methods. Almost invariably, they got drunk. Having persevered with the rest of the program, they wondered why they fell. We think the reason is that they never completed their house cleaning. They took inventory all right, but hung on to some of the worst items in stock. They only thought they had lost their egoism and fear. They only thought they had humbled themselves. But they had not learned enough of humility, fearlessness, and honesty in the sense we find it necessary until they told someone else all their life story. So this line, they took inventory, but they hung on to some of the worst items in stock. So as I mentioned, I'm doing my 4th step. I get that done, and was discussing this stuff with my sponsor, talking about a 5th step, and I had my 5th step scheduled, and I did it with a priest in town here. And after I had that scheduled, my sponsor wanted me to call him, so I did. Told him like the date and time, and then he wanted to meet beforehand. So I was like, okay. So we met up, and he talked to me about this stuff. And you've probably heard in meetings, heard it referred to like take it to your grave secrets, like these things that we've done that we soar. They were never going to see the light of day. Like we hid them deep down inside, and we're never going to tell anybody what they are, and they're never going to, we're never going to reveal them to anybody. And he had a conversation with me about that. And I'm glad he did, because there was stuff that wasn't on my 4th step, like stuff that I left off because, I felt like it was like super terrible. And like I said, I was going to take it to my grave. But as a result of having that conversation, I was able to get that stuff out and discuss it in my 5th step, which was awesome. This is more than most people. The alcoholic leads a double life, right? Like we can all relate to that. He is very much the actor. To the outer world, he presents his stage character. This is the one he likes his fellows to see. He wants to enjoy a certain reputation, but knows in his heart he doesn't deserve it, right? Like that's the story of my life. Prior to AA, And then it says, the inconsistency is made worse by the things he does on his sprees. Coming to his senses, he is revolted at certain episodes he vaguely remembers. These memories are a nightmare. He trembles to think someone might have observed him. As fast as he can, he pushes these memories far inside himself. He hopes they'll never see the light of day. He is under constant fear and tension, which makes for more drinking, right? As an alcoholic, absolutely can relate to that. Psychologists are inclined to agree with us. We have spent thousands of dollars for examinations. We know but a few instances where we have given these doctors a fair break. We have seldom told them the whole truth, nor have we followed their advice. Unwilling to be honest with these sympathetic men, we are honest with no one else. Small wonder many in the medical profession have a very low opinion of alcoholics and their chance of recovery. Prior to me coming to AA, when I was in high school, drinking and partying a lot, and my parents were sending me to counselors, and that was my experience with them. Absolutely was not honest with them about my drinking and drugging. And ultimately, obviously that was my issue, but I'm willing to be honest and let those people know what's going on. And they're not able to help us, right? We must be entirely honest with somebody if we're expected to live long and happily in this world. Rightly and naturally, we think well before choosing the person or persons with whom we take this intimate and confidential step. And then it says, those of us belonging to a religious denomination which requires confession must, and of course, will want to go to the properly appointed authority whose duty it is to receive it. A lot of people do their fist up with their sponsor. As I mentioned, I did mine with a priest, like I talked here, and I shared that grew up Catholic, and that's confession is a part of my faith. And, that was what was familiar and comfortable for me, and that's what worked for me. But I know people that have done it with just a fellow member of Alcoholics Anonymous or some other trusted person. It says, though we have no religious connection, we may still do well to talk with someone ordained by an established religion. We often find such a person quick to see and understand our problem. Of course, we sometimes encounter people who do not understand alcoholics. If we cannot or would rather not do this, we search our acquaintance for a closed-mouthed, understanding friend. Perhaps our doctor or psychologist will be the person. It may be one of our own family, but we cannot disclose anything to our wives or our parents, which will hurt them and make them unhappy, which obviously, right, like that makes sense. You would want to do this with your spouse probably. I think it's a good idea to consult your sponsor, when you're trying to decide on who should hear your fifth step. It says we have no right to save our own skin at another person's expense. Such parts of our story we tell to someone who will understand yet be unaffected. The rule is we must be hard on ourselves, but always considerate of others. Notwithstanding the great necessity for discussing ourselves with someone, it may be one is so situated there is no suitable person available. If that is so, the step may be postponed. I'm going to skip over this. If we hold ourselves in readiness to go at the first opportunity. We say this because we are very anxious that we talk to the right person. It is important that he be able to keep a confidence that he fully understand and approve what we are driving at, and that he will not try to change our plan, but we must not use this as an excuse to postpone. I guess my experience, like I said, keep moving forward and get it over with. I would have been one that used it as an excuse to put it off. I never done it, right? And it says, when we decide who is to hear our story, we waste no time. We have a written inventory and we are prepared for a long talk. We explain to our partner what we're about to do and why we have to do it. And they should realize that we are engaged upon a life and death errand, right? Like that's pretty important. Like we just read, it said if we skip this vital step, we may not overcome drinking. Most people approach them this way will be glad to help, and they will be honored by our confidence. So we got this written inventory in step 4, and we find somebody to hear our fifth step, and we sit down and go to it. When I did mine, I think it was like 3 or 4 hours it took probably. And there was a fair amount of fear going into it, but all in all, it was a very positive experience, and it went a lot better. than I had expected. It's kind of funny, like I mentioned, the whole confession thing, my son is 8 and he just went to like his first confession. They do it when you're in 2nd grade or whatever. And so we had this on Tuesday night, right? And he's super nervous. He's never done this before. And, he's talking to my wife and I about it before we're on our way to church or whatever. And I'm kind of laughing because I'm like, you're 8, like what did you do that this priest is going to be like, oh my gosh, like get out of here. But it's just like, it's a lot like we are as alcoholics, right? And going into our 5th step, and we have this irrational fear that, that we did something so terrible that we're never going to be forgiven and nobody can ever know about it. And, we have these secrets that we stuff inside and they end up killing us, because, if we can't get honest, my personal experience with that stuff, when I'm willing to share it with somebody else and get honest about it and get it out on the table, like it doesn't have power anymore, right? Like it doesn't control me anymore. So this next paragraph is the 5th step promises, right? It says we pocket our pride and go to it, illuminating every twist of character, every dark cranny of the past. Once we have taken this step, withholding nothing, we are delighted. We can look the world in the eye. We can be alone at perfect peace and ease. Our fears fall from us. We begin to feel the nearness of our Creator. We may have had certain spiritual beliefs, but now we begin to have a spiritual experience. I mean, that's huge, right? Like that's the whole purpose of the 12 steps is for us to have this spiritual awakening, right? And it says now we begin to have a spiritual experience. The feeling that the drink problem has disappeared will often come strongly. We feel we're on the broad highway walking hand in hand with the spirit of the universe. And then then it gives us some instructions here what to do after we finished our 5th step. Returning home, we find a place where we can be quiet for an hour, carefully reviewing what we have done. We thank God from the bottom of our heart that we know Him better. Again, I just think that's such a big deal, right? In the grand scheme of things, what we're trying to accomplish here through AA and the 12 steps, this relationship with a higher power, and this is such a big step in the right direction. Taking this book down from our shelf, we return to the page, which contains the 12 steps, carefully reading the first 5 proposals. We ask if we have omitted anything we are building an arch through which we shall walk a free man at last. Is our work solid so far? Are the stones properly in place? Have we skimped on the cement put in the foundation? Have we tried to make mortar without sand? Right, so it's important then, kind of after we get done with the 5th step to take some time. My sponsor encouraged me to just go someplace where I could be quiet, whether that's a park or at home or maybe a chapel someplace or wherever, and just be alone with God and kind of talk to Him and go through this stuff and read this paragraph and just take some time to kind of reflect on what it is I'm trying to do and what it is that I have done. And again, like very, very positive experience, very peaceful experience. I had trouble in the beginning, kind of being alone and being quiet, which I think a lot of us do, right? Our head can be pretty loud. Like the whole meditation thing is a difficult thing, but yeah, this was a really good experience as well. I was reading some stuff in the 12 and 12 on step 5, and I don't know, there's some things in here that I thought were pretty awesome that I want to share. It says all of AA's 12 steps ask us to go contrary to our natural desires. They all deflate our egos. When it comes to ego deflation, few steps are harder to take than step 5. But scarcely any step is more necessary to long-time sobriety and peace of mind than this one. That's, you know, a pretty powerful paragraph, I think, and a pretty big deal, right? This concept of ego deflation, and as much as we talk about selfishness and self-centeredness, and like how we're trying to move away from that, and you know, and get rid of that, and just the amount of humility I think it takes to do a fifth step. You know, we really have to kind of, well, like the book talked about, pocket our pride and go through it, right? And then there's another paragraph in here which I think is really awesome. It says, this vital step was also the means by which we began to get the feeling that we could be forgiven no matter what we had thought or done. Often it was while working on this step with our sponsors or spiritual advisors that we first felt truly able to forgive others, no matter how deeply we felt they had wronged us. Our moral inventory had persuaded us that all-around forgiveness was desirable, but it was only when we resolutely tackled step 5 that we inwardly knew we'd be able to receive forgiveness and give it too. So, I don't know, I just think that's a pretty awesome thing too. And, you know, my personal experience with the fifth step, absolutely the concept of being forgiven, and you know, like I talked about, we write all this horrible stuff down on our 4th step, and we're super embarrassed about it, and we're not, you know, you don't want to talk about it, you don't want to discuss it with some stranger or whatever. But you know, we talked a lot about that in my 5th step, about forgiveness and being forgiven, and you know, what a beautiful thing that is, right? And then also this idea of like, in being forgiven, then we are able to forgive others, right? Which is a pretty big deal too, you know. Just, you know, personally, I don't know about you guys, but a lot of that stuff that I did or that happened to me, you know, I like to blame other people and act like I was a victim, and, you know, justified, and not all that other junk that we do and that we tell ourselves or whatever. So I don't know. Yeah, it was, like I said, it was a very, very positive experience for me. And yeah, I don't know, like I said, if you do not have a sponsor, please get a sponsor, and get into the book and into the steps. So that's all I got. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mark. And next, I'd like to introduce our speaker, Tiny from Sioux Falls, to share his experience, strength, and hope on the 5th step. So please welcome Tiny.
My name is Jim. I'm not Paul. Thanks for taking 30 minutes. My sobriety date is April 25th, 1988. For that, I'm grateful. Can everybody hear me? Do I need to move this?
Snap off if we're not careful there, buddy.
Is that good?
That's perfect.
Do I need to talk into it?
There you go.
5th step. I've done one. Thanks. I don't really know how to, I've been thinking about this all day. I don't really know how to do a meeting or talk on the 5th step without really telling my story. That's really all I got is my story and what 5th steps, how they've played out. And 5th is no different than 4 through 9. It's all part of that same deal, right? You know, I came into this deal at 21 years old. I'm just going to tell my story real quick here. 21 years old. I was in the Netherlands, and I was in the military, and we did the first 3 steps, me and my sponsor. And I went out to Southern California in the desert, and I got a sponsor out there named Bob T, and he took me through 4 and 5. And was it honest and thorough? I guess. Right? I got out of the service, and that's where I stopped. Right? I just stopped at 5. I never went any farther. And I got active in AA, and I did 7 years of jail meetings, and I traipsed around the country and went to tons of AA meetings, and I shared my experience, strength, and hope. And I never worked any steps. I mean, I worked 1 through 5, kind of, right? And that's just my story. And so now we come fast forward, and all went along for a long time. It went along well for a long time until it didn't. And then when it didn't, it come down crashing hard. And I had no choice but to pick up this kit of spiritual tools and do the work that it says to do in the book, or make the ultimate sacrifice. That was my 2 choices. Just like it says early in the beginning. It says we got two alternatives, right? Go out to the bitter end of this drinking deal, see where that goes, or to accept spiritual principles. And I got there, it just happened to be I was 17 years sober. So I got a sponsor. I asked the guy to sponsor me. And I didn't know how to do a 5th step, a 4th step. I honestly didn't know. I've been sober 17 years and didn't know how to do a 4th step, legitimately, or whatever. I asked the guy, and just my sponsor, he said, go get this guy, and this guy will help you. So I did a 4th step. And as haphazardly as I did it, it was as honest and thorough, and it saved my life. Because that's what it's about. It says right in there, right? If we don't do this deal, we may not overcome drinking. I may not have ever drank again the rest of my life, but I may have died of the disease of alcoholism. 2 totally different deals. That's scary. Them are dark days, right? Some of your heads nodding, you can agree, right? So I did a 5th step just on where I was at right then and there through the aid of a sponsor. I did a 4th step, and then I went and did a 5th step, and it was much like, I grew up Catholic. I grew up in actually this church, Little Flower. It was basically a confession, but you know what it did? It cemented in me that this program works. These actions work. As I would have bet money, I was betting my life that it wouldn't work. That's the true bet, the true wager was my life, that this wouldn't work for me. And I did it, and it worked. And I got just a little glimpse of God, right? The trudging got lighter. And I can't talk about 5 without talking about 6, 7, 8, and 9. Because then I have to immediately go to 6 and 7 and ask God, are you there? Are you truly there? Do you truly got my back? Show me. And he did. I got a spiritual experience, right? A spiritual experience, not a spiritual awakening. But I saw a spiritual experience through this process. Some of the guys I work with a lot and talk with a lot, to me, the 5th step is just this journey toward God. And in the beginning, this journey is real wide. And I did a 4th and 5th step, and I swallowed some big chunks of truth about myself. And it propelled me down this road of faith and this road of seeking. And as I've been on this journey, I've hit some hard spots in life. And I've went back, and I've done another 4th and 5th step. And through that, the road's narrowed some, right? Because my faith is my God is narrowing the road as I go down this road, right? I got a couple of stories. I don't know how you tell stories about a 5th step. I mean, I just share parts of mine because it's nothing secret. I could care less about that. One of my 5th steps here, 5, 6, 7 years ago, I don't know. We were doing in Caribou parking lot, me and my sponsor. And I was just reading the resentments part of this 4-step with him. And I'm talking about my oldest brother. Who shows up? My oldest brother. Hey, what are you guys doing? Doing a 5th step on your ass. Pardon me, I mean, right, that's how deja vu it is, right? He's 17 years older than me and lives out of state. Our chances of running into each other at Caribou are zillion to none. And here he is. Ironically, he called me today just to visit. What does that mean? I don't know. Weird. I'm coming down here to speak on 5th step. And he was one of the major players in one of my 4 steps. And we chatted and had a nice 30-minute visit today, right before coming here. What does that mean? I don't know. But, I've also done 5th steps in Tallgrass parking lot. And I've done, my last 5th step was a few years ago with a Catholic priest. For no other reason that he adheres for 4 steps. If I can move that a little bit. I've been sober a long time, and a lot of them years I was sober, right? And meaning not drinking. And today I will tell you that to having worked 4 through 9 several times, this isn't about not drinking. My life is full color now. And it's never been that. It's never been full color. In the last years of my sobriety have just really, I've been blessed the last years of my sobriety. It says in here that we may not overcome drinking. Or in my case, like the disease of alcoholism, right? I may not overcome it. And that's scary, right? To die an alcoholic death without drinking. I don't know of a darker day. I don't know how to do a 5th step talk, really, guys. So I'm going to bounce around like a ping pong ball. But, my last 4 step, the resentments part of my 4 step were all people that were extremely close to me, family and friends. When I wrote them down, they just looked silly. 90% of them were just silly. And when the book says they're cast out, they were literally cast out. I haven't thought of one of them since. Them resentments are gone. Gone. We talk about the fears. They fell off. I'm just not afraid today, right? I'm in a place where I've never been. Speaking in front of groups I've never spoke for around. And I just don't have fears of a whole lot today. But more importantly, the last 4 step I did was more about my sex conduct. How do I carry myself as a man? How do I carry myself as a Christian man? How do I carry myself as a father? A husband? That's what's important today. I can come in here without my flannel shirt on, covered with tattoos and saying the F every other word. And I can rule the entire room because I'm bigger than everybody, right? And that's my intimidation, and that's my character defects, right? 10 years ago, you wouldn't have recognized me as I'm fully covered with tattoos and long hair and a full beard and screaming F from the podium, just carrying on like a nincompoop, Today, if I swear from a podium, I really apologize. But do you see the change there, guys? So if you're doing a 4th and 5th step today for your first time, it's not the 4th and 5th. It's just a 4th and 5th. It's just one. It's just one. We're going to do probably a bunch of them, right? Because at some point, what was on my last 4 step, guys, would have never made my first one, right? So as we're going down the road, things become less tolerable, for lack of better words, right? Things just don't sit right anymore. I can't conduct myself like that anymore. When I see that in me, I'm ashamed and embarrassed. That's got to go on that 4th step. I got to figure that out. I got to inventory that behavior, right? Why am I being that way? Am I frightened? Am I selfish? What, right? Does it make sense to anybody? Right? So again, them roads get narrower. When, to me, the pathway of faith is 4 through 9, and then of course 10, 11, and 12. But 5 is such an integral part. Where am I being selfish, dishonest, or resentful, and frightened? I need to know that. I need to know that. So when the opportunities come up and as day to day and life to life and wife to wife, and as we're just going, propelling ourselves through our life, when they pop up, we're so quick to recognize them in our 10th step, right? That's what we're trying to stave off. And I've never read it before, but I read it in a bunch of other stuff that I read about bringing the light into the dark crannies of our soul, right? The more I do a 5th step, the more I'm inviting God into my heart, into all the dark crannies of my heart and my soul and what I think and what I do. I want more God in me and want all that stuff out, right? So there ain't no way I'm going to do 25 more minutes, but I really don't know how to do 5th step talk, but I just want you guys to know that because we've done one, we can do another one, right? That makes sense. You touched on it about them promises. We're so quick to read them promises on 83, like they're the do-all, be-all, and they're cool. I'm not taking anything away from them. But when I read this today, I read this as well today. We can be alone at perfect peace and ease. Isn't that what we're striving for? That to me is like right up there with when the book says happy, joyous, and free. I'll take free every day, right? Free. I want to be free. Free of my mind, free of my thoughts, right? I want to live in a place that's Zen-like. The 5th step takes me there. That's that vehicle. The more I do, the more I'm willing to do an honest and thorough 5th step, the more God comes into my heart. And then it changes me. We do 10, 11, and 12. We're not even the same old people. We're completely changed. We're just not even that soul no more. And then it goes back to what the book says. We're going to be reborn. That's a big promise. It says we'll begin to feel a nearness to our Creator. Now we'll begin to have a spiritual experience. Well, when we go out, a bunch of the guys from Tallgrass are here, and I go out there every month, and I just love going out there. I do. I just love going out there. That's not me. That's not me. I've never wanted to go to a treatment center ever. I mean, that's the truth, right? Middle of the day, go out to a treatment center, but I love going out there every month. That's an experience, a spiritual experience. I'm not the same guy. 5th step has done that, right? The feeling the drink problem has disappeared. 17 years ago, guys, I was sitting on the edge of a bed in the darkest spots of my life. And men of Alcoholics Anonymous came to my side, and that day I was willing to do anything. And that was as honest and thorough a 5th step, a 4th step, and 5th step that I could ever do. Now, I'm going to close with this, guys, because maybe we can invite somebody else up. But, I did my last 5th step with a Catholic priest, and who's been around a long time. And he knows me for years. And he said part of his life is confession, weekly confession. And he said after he gave his, who he gave it to a compadre, and his compadre said, keep trying, man, keep trying. And that was probably the best 5th step advice I could have ever gotten is, we still, at some point we're human, we still sin, we still think impure, but we just keep trying, And my suggestion to anybody is, if you're struggling wherever you're at, there's a lot of new people here, but I don't know where you're at in your road to recovery. Go back through the steps, grab a sponsor, go back through the steps. The last 5 steps I've heard have been just literally at coffee houses. My last 5th step, a couple of them ago, was I gave a 5th step at a coffee house. I mean, they're just really, the first couple are a little bit frightening. After that, it's a cleanse. To me, it's like a cleansing. It's just get things out in the open, bring light to them. And then they lose the power to kill me. And I really wish I could milk this 20 more minutes, guys, but I just can't. I just thank you for having me. I really do appreciate, love a bunch of you guys. Some of you guys not so much.
All right. Thank you very much, Jim. I think we're going to close now with the Lord's Prayer. So we'll do a circle.
Before we end, we need the tables and chairs as is down in front of them. Who's Father?
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. You keep coming back, get worse, work it.
Really good.
It's a different screen.
Stop it, Peter. Stop it.
I've never really been to let you run this whole thing.
Scott.
Scotty. Someone stop this.